Welcome to Voices of the West from Dusty Saddle. Today I have the honor of talking to Greg Patton, who writes as Clint Clay, one of our more prolific authors out there. Uh, Greg, welcome and tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm an old man.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, I live out in southeast Kansas and with my wife, and we raised a family here. And we like to ride horses and enjoy the country life, and you know, and we have our own arena here at the house, so we can barrel race or rope cattle if we want. And so, and I've been riding now for about 5 or 6 years, and I enjoy it. And I used to be a nurse and retired from being a nurse a couple of years ago, and then I went back to work, and now I work again for the state of Kansas, and I travel all over southeast Kansas doing agricultural work, checking on feedlots, and that's what I do now, and I love it.
Very good. So obviously you've got a very solid background for the West, definitely of horses and everything else running there right in the middle of Kansas. What kind of really got you into it though?
When I was writing poetry and and for my wife, and then posting it on Facebook and stuff. And then I believe Nick contacted me and said, "Hey, how about writing a book?" And I believe that my first books were Bounty Hunter for Hire and The Bounty Hunter Returns, and I think they're still on audio. But there was 3 books in that Bounty Hunter series when I first started, and I believe they're on that you can get them in audio. And then after that, I just kept writing something, and making it a little longer most each time if I could. But my average book's about 70 pages, short stories.
Very good. What do you think makes a good Western story?
Well, I like to try to make the history as close to real life as possible. Do a little research into the area, and I like to write about Kansas. Kansas has got a lot of history in it. The Dalton Gang, the vendors, the Coffeyville Defenders, the Fort Scott being burnt down or Lawrence being burnt down by Contrail. There's a lot of stuff. And Abilene's up here, the Western Dodge City, the cattle drives all came up. So there was a lot of stuff in Kansas to write about. A lot of people think Kansas is just a flat state, but you travel a quarter mile, it changes. It's different. Now you get that way out west, it looks flat for a long time, then all of a sudden you might drop into a place that looks like the Ozarks. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, good topography there. Um, when you're putting together a Western, what do you start with? An overall idea for something or a character?
Overall idea, and I like to use some events that are uh, maybe real that I know of, and then just try to take them back a couple hundred years or 100 years, and try to write a book about them and change the names and some of the incidents, but try to use some of the same uh, storyline that's of a true thing. So, and so I think a good Western is, some history, like I said, plus I like to see somebody get shot and you got to figure out who did it, or that sheriff has brought somebody in, and it's a lot of chasing somebody around or trailing them and
Yeah,
catching
a
the
little
bad
bit of
guy.
mystery getting attached to all that, where you have to like go out there and solve something that people don't know about. Yeah,
Yeah.
very good premises to all of that. Do you write for yourself, or do you write for what you think a reader would want to read?
Well, I personally write for myself, and I hope the reader likes it. But I kind of get stirred on trying to write different things that the reader might like, and so I've been trying to do that a little bit more. But usually, I just write for myself what I like.
Okay. When you're talking about doing research, what kind of research do you do, and how long do you spend doing it before you settle down to writing?
Well, I'll start Googling it and looking at it. Then maybe I might go to the site, if it's a Kansas site, take a look. And it, the research is ongoing while I'm writing it too, but I'll get an idea, try to get some facts that are for that era of time, put that together. And even when I'm writing, I might go out and see the area where I was at, check it out on a map, try to figure out everything, make it look as real as possible.
Absolutely. People like realism when it comes to that. What are some misconceptions about Westerns that you could clear up?
Misconceptions. Oh, I
Yes.
don't know. I don't know. Don't know how to answer that.
Well, what do you think is one of the more undeveloped parts of the West that people haven't looked into enough?
Uh, Probably the general real history of the West. I think the misconceptions that now that I think about it is, the silver screen back when, we first started doing Westerns and stuff and dime novels, all the outlaws were probably heroes, which they were really terrible criminals. That's a misconception. Jesse James was one of the worst outlaws out there. A lot of people were outlaws and they made them out to be heroes in some of the old movies. I think that's a misconception. And so I'm going to clear that up. And I think even some of the lawmen used to be outlaws out here. So, and that takes somebody to know one to catch one.
Yeah, actually, general history of sheriffs and different things like that, they seem to sort of fade back and forth for which side of the law they're on, depending upon what state they're in.
Yeah, or how broke they are.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of Western have you long dreamed about writing?
Well, I like Lonesome Dove. My favorite Western is in movies was Tombstone. I love that with Kurt Russell. Really, that's always been my favorite. And if I could write something that interesting and make it become a movie or something, that would be awesome. So, and I like Lewis Lamar. I like the way all his books have some character in them from another book, and they kind of connect, and that's something I like to do. And so a lot of my first books are more connected. Now, my next one coming out is the first in a series that I'm going to be writing, and so this young man, he's the old guy telling the story right now, but he's going to tell about how he'd gone to the mountains and tried that out, came back and and went to the Civil War. I like post Civil War westerns and running in that area.
Mm-hmm. Tell us what you can about this upcoming one. I know it deals with Kansas, and well, I don't want to give away too much just from the title on it.
Yeah. Well, it's about the deputy goes out on his worst assignment. He's looking for the killer of his son, and and I guess I probably gave that away right now because it doesn't say that to the end of the book. Because it'll start out with him catching the outlaw, and then he'll reminisce back in history. And then toward the end of the book, it brings it back how he got him. And the thing is, my son was murdered about 90 days ago. So the emotion I put into that is real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you feel the Western market is changing?
I think more people are enjoying the westerns. I think they're becoming more popular, and I'm glad that's happening. I think that's what's going on. I think there's more interest in it than there used to be. It used to be all the movies were westerns, and they went all the way from that to action movies. And now I do see some newer westerns coming out that are well made, and then I see some series, like the one with Harrison Ford, and then Sam Elliott, and those are pretty good series as they came out.
Yeah, it's been a nice.
And then you got Yellowstone, so I think that modern Western Yellowstone. There's a lot of Western stuff coming out, but it keeps people interested.
Yeah. What do you think it keeps? Why do you think it keeps coming back? I mean, we're
Because
talking.
it's interesting, because it holds people's interest, and they want to see what's going to happen next. And those times are long gone, and the country will never look like that again. But it's a country they live in. You know, if it's Americans, if it's a, and I said, wow, you know, that's really how it was, or this is that was just right out here. You know, doesn't look like anything like that now.
Definitely, when you get, well, get my part of California, family's been here for 6 generations. This was like at best farm fields and basically nothing now, and it's all neighborhoods. So yes.
Well, we're kind of having that now on uh, northeastern Kansas. We have it was farms, you know, and a lot of dairies, and now, you know, metropolitan is pushing out, and a lot of that stuff's becoming residential areas, and so it's changing. You know, it's like constantly changing. Western Kansas still looks a lot the same. Their irrigation out there changed the world out there because they were able to grow corn and other crops and be more efficient with it. But Western Kansas, the only thing it used to be able to survive out there was the wheat. You know, if the water table stays low, they may have to go to just wheat or wind farm. But they did get some rain out there this year, and it changed a lot of it.
Yeah. So, what's the best piece of advice anyone's ever given you for writing?
Write from your heart. Um, Try not to add too much to it. You know, you can be too wordy sometimes and take away from the point you're trying to make. And so I think that's the best advice. You know, sometimes you want to make more words, make the book longer, and you think, wow, you know, I could have said that a lot simpler, and it would probably sound a lot better. And then I think that was the way to do it. Do it this most simple way.
Mhm.
You know,
So, of all of your listeners, what would you suggest for a first-time reader to get started on you?
oh, uh,
I guess it's kind of what's your favorite book that you've written, or what, if you can have
uh,
it.
I think it's what is the name of that book? Let me look it up here real quick. You know, as old guys, we don't remember as well as we should. But there's one I really like, and I think it's Return to Black Mountain, or maybe it's Black Mountain, but it's a. Let me see. It just will take me a second.
No worries.
But I like Hand on the Iron, which was self-published, and it probably had a lot of errors in it. But no, Man of Iron, I like that. But Blood on the Mountain. Blood on the Mountain's a pretty good book, and that's Dusty Saddles published that. And that is a great book, and I really liked it. And then there's another one I really like, and it is called Marshall's Gun. Marshall's Gun is a great book. And when I wrote Marshall's Gun, with my son that was killed, he had cerebral palsy, so he had seizures, and he had seizures, and he had to go to the hospital in Kansas City. So when I was driving up to Kansas City to sit with him, and I was up there for about a week. I didn't know if he would survive or not. And driving through the weather from southeast Kansas up to northeast Kansas, it had little changes in the weather and stuff. And I started putting together ideas about this book that I wrote, and you know, hit this lawman's son got shot, and he ended up in the hospital, but he survived that one, you know, and so that's one I like, you know, and it has a lot of Kansas history in it and real life stuff. Uh, of course, it's fiction, but does use some facts from that era where he and another deputy are out searching for the outlaws, and I think that Yeah, Marshall's Gun. I love that book. I think it's one of the best.
Very good. And that all this and all of your books are findable on Amazon. Where else can people find out more about you?
Well, Amazon's got all my books. My biography is there on the Amazon author's page as a biography, and of course it says Clint Clay. But it's true. I mean, we're from Southeast Kansas. My wife and I, we have a farm here, a ranch, and that's where they can find out more about me.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to talk on all this, Greg.
Well, I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Yes.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, I can find all your things up on Dusty Saddle. So with Greg Patton, Clint Clay, actually, I think they're all under not Greg Patton for that. So check out Clint Clay books on Amazon and give them a good read.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.